Hey team, welcome back to the show. Today it is Coach Natalie and I. Andrea is on her way to Texas for her next show. So just the two of us here talking through how much should your coach be meeting you where you are at. There's a very common saying in the industry, hey, we should meet clients where they're at. And I think everyone just accepts this as true, but is that always the best approach? That's really what we're going to discuss today. Um, Natalie, I know you brought this to the table as our topic, so fill me in. Why did you think this was an important topic to discuss?
I think it's a good one to discuss because I think there is just so much nuance into coaching and individualized coaching and how this may or may not apply to new clients, current clients. I see so many things on social media, and so I would assume everyone else does as well. Where it's like, oh, this is behavior change. This is hard. Like, we need to baby step people. And I was very much early on in my coaching career of that mindset, like
Same.
baby steps. And I definitely think that is one way to do it and a method that I still use for certain people, or maybe like something that I will use within my coaching of one person, maybe not for everything applicable to that person, but one area of their life. It's like, hey, we're going to take this nice and slow. Um, but the longer that I'm in this space, it's a really tricky push and pull, I think, with motivation for the clients and momentum because we have the advantage as a coach of having the bird's eye view. We have objectivity, we have perspective, and we have experience with lots of different people. So we can see very easily down the mountain and see like what the obstacles are. And it is really tempting to want to address everything at once because, again, I see so clearly what is holding this person back.
Right.
And so that's really the conversation, I think, is like, how quickly can we get this person moving without crashing and burning?
That was going to be one of the initial things I said as well. Very much coaching is a balancing act of knowing just how far to push someone out of their comfort zone to keep them progressing without hitting the breaking point. And again, it's a fine line, and where that is will depend. But I think again, from like both coach and client perspective, if the client is always in their comfort zone, they're not going to progress. They're not going to change, right? Like your initial protocols when you start with a coach, if that feels like, oh, this is just like what I was doing before, we're not going to grow like that. Or like a really good example for me from the last couple of weeks is my client, Susie. So she's someone where initially when she started, and she's made great progress regardless, but like she has so much potential that I wanted more for her. Basically, the when we first started, I started her off with a meal plan. Didn't really follow it. Just like, I just like where I'm at right now, my goals. Like, I just want a more flexible lifestyle. I want to do a lot more with like different recipes, things like that. Cool. Okay. Yeah. You know what? I'll meet you where I'm at, where you're at there. I'm good with that. And we went about that for a while, and she's made solid progress, still happy with where she's at. But especially in the last month, she'd very much been in a slump, and just I could tell she wasn't feeling her best. She had mentioned it several times, just like didn't feel great in her body composition, etc. I was like, all right, so do you want to continue to approach this as how you would coach yourself? Or do you want to just give me the reins and help you get the best possible results out of this? Because she's also preparing for a trip at the end of July, actually. Um, she's like, well, obviously, I want to get the best possible results out of this, right? Right? Like, why would I say otherwise? It's like, okay, so we're just gonna follow a meal plan exactly for the next 2 weeks. I know this isn't what you want to do. I know there's all these meals out we want to take part in, etc. But this is why you hired me. I'm here to help you grow, not to give you what's comfortable in the moment, but to help you realize more of your potential. And then it is very cool to see like she's made sick progress the last couple of weeks. She's progressed so quickly, but also like her whole personality, like she's so excited about things. She's feeling so good, right? And it's because I pushed her into that thing that was uncomfortable. Now, what I started to see the last couple of days when she filled out her check-in this morning, it was like, hey, the last couple of days we kind of been slacking on this. And I see like, hey, well, I'm feeling really good. I'm gonna like take a few meals off here in the next couple of days because like I have this and this and I'm traveling. I was like, We got to keep doing the thing that made us feel good to continue to feel good, or otherwise we're just repeating the same habit loop. So we're going to take our food with us on this trip, right? We're going to meal prep ahead. But point of all that being, again, like that was someone where, again, she was in a good place, but being able as a coach to see, like, I wasn't really meeting her where she was at, but where she wanted to be. And ultimately, that was for sure, like, she was very happy with the outcome she got there as well. But again, like, coaching is kind of understanding how to find that balancing act.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
I think even that saying is really interesting, meeting you where you're at. Like, why would I meet you where you're at? Like, you're actively seeking coaching because you don't like where you're at. You don't want to be
Yeah,
there. So, like, why
yeah,
why am I joining you there where you don't want to be? Like, I need to push you somewhere, somehow, into new territory. And it's important, I think, for us to mention for our listeners, our typical client demographic is the lean person trying to get leaner. So this person is already doing a lot of things really well. Like they already know how to track their food, they're already training in the gym. So I feel like meal plans are going to come up a lot in this conversation today because it is just such a good example. But this is the person who's ticking a lot of their boxes and they're frustrated because they feel like they should be making more progress and they're plateaued. So what is required to make progress and to get to that next level is to take what it is you're doing and do it better. So think about it this way. If you're already tracking calories and protein, let's say, or you're already tracking and kind of flexible dieting, using a lot of recipes, what is it that you're expecting from the coach? Like a magic, I do think a lot of people are expecting like a magical new set of macros where like the heavens open up, the stars align, and suddenly they look like an influencer or something. And like the magic is never in the macros themselves. It is in the strategy and how we are in the execution. So like how are we executing? Like it's not in the training program either. It's how are we executing that training program? And of course, I will add the disclaimer, we need we need a set of macros that makes sense. We need a
right.
training plan that is good and makes sense, right? So under like
Hmm.
accepting that those things are like bare minimum decent of decent quality, then it becomes about the execution. So my giving someone a set of macros versus another coach, like what is the difference there? And if you are already tracking your macros, and let's say we're in the similar ballpark, we need to be looking for other clues. Like, what is it
Yeah,
that we need to be doing better? And for our clients, I would say 9 times out of 10, this is a more thoughtful meal plan. Even if
yeah,
it's not written by one of us, like it is, we need to set up your foundation so that it supports the strategy that we are trying to do here. We need to make sure that you are fueling for your training, you're recovering properly from your training. We're not hoarding calories for the end of the day for that sweet treat that y'all love. We're not, eating one meal a day or something of the sort. We're spreading our protein out throughout the day. Like these are just some of the things that I see. And then I feel like I'm just like dovetailing and like all over our outline here. I think we're trying to have like a fluid discussion.
yeah. You're
Uh,
good.
but these are some of the things I see with new clients that we're onboarding. And if I wanted, like, this is an already fairly lean person, okay? So if this person was a higher body fat percentage, this might be the person that I'm like, hey, can we park a little bit further away at the store? And like that I know that that's gonna inch our steps up. Hey, can we like work protein into every meal? That's not this person. This person's like having, they're hitting a protein goal. They already go to the gym. They probably are overdoing cardio, if anything. Um, and so again, what are we going to do differently? And I have found over the years that one of the best teaching tools is giving someone an example of what a proper, balanced, fueled day of eating looks like and feels
Sure.
like. Because not only can they then have that template and see it for themselves, but the biggest thing for buy-in is that, like your client Susie, for example, she hops on it and she's like, whoa, I feel way better. It's like, right. And then that becomes motivating. It's like, right, look at how much better you feel. Look at how much better your training is. And that creates so much buy-in for people. It's like, oh, I actually didn't know that I could feel this good. I
Or
didn't
even
know like what it feels like to rock up to the gym and actually not be like hungry or like underfed. I'm actually fueled for once.
or even from a fat loss perspective, like that's a big part of why we get such great fat loss outcomes. Sometimes it's not anything magic with like we completely cured this person's metabolism type thing. It's just like the amount of clients I've had tell me, man, I cannot believe I'm eating this many calories, or like I have never been this lean in my life despite trying for so long. And it's like, what's the difference? Oh, just following the meal plan. I didn't realize how inaccurately I was tracking. And it's like, here we're talking about like multiple examples I can think of just off of the top of my head who are coaches. This is like within the last month, I can think of so many examples like that where it's like, that is the difference. Just this is very relevant to the last podcast we discussed about the level where we discussed the levels of adherence. It just makes it easier for us to be a lot closer to that elite level of adherence. And again, it's like, hey, we already know how to track macros. We already know how to track them very well. But if you're a lean person trying to get leaner, again, we discussed how fine that line is. Just those two energy drinks and that little bit of ketchup you're eating every day that completely wrecks like half of your deficit. Uh, so I think I would say the meal plans, like, yes, they'll probably be a big topic here. We're obviously both big fans of meal plans. Not something we always use, but I think this is a really good discussion, like when we do and don't use them. I think that, again, for this person who is a lean person trying to get leaner, I am not opposed with the right person for them just using macros. Now,
Mhm.
that said, there are a couple important stipulations. Honestly, most people don't typically tick these boxes, even coaches. First, are they really consistently already doing a good job with their food quality? Spacing their food throughout the day, getting in plenty of protein is fairly balanced throughout the day. Choosing satiating foods if we're dieting. And again, typically this is kind of like that unicorn who can do well with this. It's kind of like that unicorn client where it's like they've competed in the past and they actually look quite good on stage, right? Or they've already gotten like quite ripped and quite jacked on their own, or at least quite ripped on their own, and they just are hiring you to take it to the next level. And they've already basically very successfully done the thing with macros. Typically, cool. They can do it. Honestly, in that instance, I still generally like a meal plan just because it takes out as much room for error as we can. But I like in that instance, I'm not opposed to it. But for most lean people trying to get leaner, as I mentioned, it's typically like hey, we need to learn how to structure our food better throughout the day. We need to learn what like being 100% dialed in looks like, and we need to remove all this room for error in your intake that flexible dieting is causing you. Or even if like from a time perspective, you don't have the time to think about and like play macro Tetris all the time. And that's a big barrier for you in fat loss because you get stressed out and you stop, or you say, screw it. This removes all that, right? It makes it mindless. It's just automated. Uh, for so many people there, that is very helpful. There is, again, initially sometimes some resistance, but again, I talked about this with my client last week as well, who just for 5 days after like a year of working together, just 5 days of following meal plans, she dropped lower than we'd ever seen before. Um, but there is a lot of resistance to that. Any other thoughts there for like that lean person getting leaner kind of demographic?
Yeah, I think macros work really well for people whose diet mostly consists of whole unprocessed foods. And
Hmm.
I know that makes me sound like really all or nothing, and it's like, ooh, I don't eat any processed foods. Like, that's not true. We all know I eat cereal. Um, but what you need is a really strong foundation because
Hmm.
I think a lot of people envision a future where they're either not tracking or they can wing it. I can go on vacation and I can kind of do the intuitive thing. I don't have to like overthink it. And in my experience, the people who struggle with that the most are the ones who don't have the system and foundation. So I'm going to use myself as an example. Like, I eat 4 meals a day, and that has been my routine for as long as I can remember. I just
Right.
like it. It works with my schedule. Our clients know you can train your hunger signals. So, like, my body is set up for 4 meals a day. Like, so it
Right.
will remind me, like, when I have a meal coming up. I'd have to be wildly off my schedule for that not to happen. But usually, like, the body clock kind of winds up and it's like, oh, it's time for meal three, which it will be here in the next hour or so. Um, but my meals are roughly the same throughout fat loss, building, maintenance. Like, I will rotate my produce when it's makes sense and it's seasonal, or like I love to use the example swapping like salmon for beef or something like that,
Yeah.
whatever's on sale. Like, it's not like a carbon copy for years of the same thing. But it's like I will say my breakfast every single morning is like some variety of like protein oatmeal. So when I go on vacation, guess what? Like, it's protein oatmeal for breakfast. Like, nothing really varies, and I have that like system to fall back on, and it's mostly whole unprocessed foods. And
Yeah.
so if I wanted to intuit my day into like a build or a cut, I probably could, because example meal 3 is going to be like Greek yogurt with some sort of fruit and some sort of like nut butter or nuts. Like, that's just what it is.
Yeah.
So if I'm in fat loss, cool, we're gonna have less of the nut butter. Or like if I'm on vacation, we're gonna have no nut butter because I'm probably gonna have like a little bit more flexibility with dinner, right? Like, those are logical conversations that you can have with yourself when you've got the system. So the
Right.
problem that I see with people that are tracking that are not paying attention, and this is like the IIFYM crowd, or like they're tracking as they go throughout the day, and they're kind of winging it that way. And like the numbers always seem to math by the end of the day, but there's not really a system. Those are the people that are going to struggle the most when you take away the tracking app, because they don't have
Sure.
the system. And like if you are relying on a lot of like whole unprocessed foods, those are what make hitting your macros difficult, because the macros are so much harder. Because when you look at like fruit, for example, it's like exclusively a carb.
Mhm.
When you look at chicken breast, it's exclusively a protein, right? Like cream of rice is going to be exclusively carbohydrate. Yes, there will be like a trace gram of protein or something like that. But my point is when you're having more of these processed foods, that's when you get these like bizarre numbers of carbs, fats, trace proteins that aren't actually quality protein. And that's what makes your numbers harder to crunch.
Yeah. All very well put. It's essentially just we need to teach these people the skills to be successful. Basically, the skill set and structure to be successful. Very few people are as skilled at the nutrition component as they think they are,
I
especially if we're
was I
playing.
was you took the words out of my mouth, because that was like the next point I wanted to make, but you made it. But like I think more people, because they know how to track their food in an app,
Hmm.
they think that they are skilled at nutrition.
Correct.
And they are not the same things.
Right. And that's that skill set. If you are someone who, hey, I want to be like, I want to be able to have like a couple days a week where I play the flexible dieting game and I'm successful, it works out well for me. Or as you said, like, I want to be able to like take time away from tracking in the future. Okay, we need to be able to we need to have that skill set in place for that to go well. Because as you said, when you have like for you could easily do that. You could take an untracked day, an untracked week. You could probably go through a fat loss phase without tracking your food if you really wanted to. We're too much of control freaks to probably actually do that, especially you psycho. But realistically, we probably could. Um, let's flip the script though and talk about beginners. So basically, I think we're of agreement here. If we're talking about like this lean person getting leaner, who's not extremely highly skilled yet, on the nutrition front, we're probably not it's probably not in your best interest for us to just like quote unquote meet you where you're at and like, yeah, let's just keep tracking macros, right? You're just gonna always what I see is, hey, we don't really actually see any lifestyle change or a whole lot of food selection change. People just try to cram the same food sources, the same meal timings into a new set of macros, and it doesn't actually yield the changes we want. So I'm a huge fan of meal plans for that population. Let's talk more beginner client though, right? Like someone is who brand new to this. I think of like again, it's hard to like the meet someone where they're like meeting them where they're at. I know that's such a vague definition, and it's like if we just, I mean, we can't just keep doing what you're doing regardless. So it's like I think of like my client Dallas, for example, when he started coaching. My guy was eating out 3 meals a day every day and drinking a ton of regular soda. So like our initial game plan, it was literally just, hey, let's just reduce it down to just one meal out per day and just swap the diet soda. And I kind of think of that as like it wasn't a drastic shift, but it was kind of easing him into things. And like just that removes a drastic amount of calories, right? So like kind of meeting someone where they're at versus like, hey, let's just rip the band-aid off and do a complete 180 on the lifestyle. You're gonna go from eating 3 meals out a day to we're just following the meal plan strictly. How do you decide with a newer client like that, like which direction we go in? Like when do we just rip the band-aid off?
I was thinking about this, and which is why I thought it would make for a good podcast conversation because, like, I went over this in my head so many times, and I was like, well,
It's a
I'm
hard
like, I'm
question.
not really sure. Um, because for every point I make, I could just make a counterpoint against
Yeah.
myself. But again, we're here to talk about it and deep dive. Um, I think a lot of it has to do with the person's capacity for change. And I think that's where a good coach comes in is like pattern recognition and like being able to identify your new client's capacity for change. Because what will happen is a lot of people will make a decision to sign up for coaching emotionally. So they'll be doom scrolling social media and see elevated coaching systems, client transformations, which are impressive. So, that brings them to our page, right? And then they're like, that could be me. I'm gonna reach out. So they kind of like
Right.
reach out when they're feeling kind of like emotional in a moment of inspiration. And then it's on us to really ascertain or assess their readiness and capacity because like does this person want to change? Yeah, I do believe that most people do. But
Hmm.
are they willing to do the things that it requires? And I think that's the conversation and that's also the difficult part of change. Because like I said, I could just keep you where you're at and change like one variable, but then the problem there is that a lot of people are going like muscle building and fat loss already goes too slow for most
Right.
people. And I
Right.
mean, I wish it went faster too, for sure, especially muscle growth. Um, but that's where like you gotta show them some wins. And what I used to always start my beginner clients like barely changing anything, and I would start like, okay, I need you. Okay, we're only eating like 2 meals. It's like our first meal's at noon and our next meal's at like 9 p.m. And then we're like
Right.
eating whatever because we're so hungry by that point. So like I really just want you to like eat your first meal earlier and then like fit in lunch. So we're having 3 meals a day now. The problem is I think that a lot of people who are signing up for coaching are really like to their credit are really interested in learning and they
Right.
want more than that.
Right.
And like again, like we know because we have that objective view that we know that just like bumping this dude to like 3 meals a day, he's gonna start feeling better. His hunger signaling's gonna start functioning. Like his energy's gonna be better. Like his digestion's gonna pick up. We know that. But for them, as a client facing business, they're like, what am I paying this person for? Like she just told me to eat lunch. Like what, they're looking for more. And
Right.
and I think that people deserve more in that way. And I found that with like a lot of my beginners, I'm like, well, I don't want to tell you what to eat because then, you're not learning anything. But I had a lot of like non-starters at first that because like they just were so paralyzed by like I don't know what to do. Like I don't know what
Right.
to have. And me saying like pick the protein like chicken, steak, fish, pick one and then make your lunch based on that wasn't enough for a lot of people. Like the total beginner does not know what nutrition looks like or what good nutrition feels like.
Right.
And so I think again I'm kind of like talking around the topic, but I think that's the point here is like if we can show this person up front, and I have a couple new clients that come to mind. I'm gonna shout out my client Diana because she's awesome. She's been with me about like a little over a month or so, And, she came to me eating like 1,500 calories and was working with a previous coach. And she was like, I'm just like, I'm stalled out. And then I can't really stick to this. Like, I'm really hungry. I'm like, okay, let's get into like what's going on here. And we set her up with a meal plan. And she's eating, I started her around like 2,000 calories, which I think for her is like a slight deficit, but like significantly more than she was eating. And she loves it. She's
Oh yeah.
like, dude, this is so easy. Like, I feel so good. Like, I'm not hungry. This is great. And like, so there's an example of like, someone who like, yeah, I could just waste weeks telling her like, okay, let's tweak this one thing in meal two. Let's tweak this. And it's like, but I got
Like
her
if you were
feeling
looking through her food logs, you're saying,
right.
right?
But it's like now it's like she's so far ahead of where she would have been.
Hmm.
And again, for every client like that, I could pull out a client from my coaching past and tell you that that didn't work. So it again, I think back to your initial question like an hour ago, I think it's really like readiness and capacity for change.
That's actually that's we're taking the words out of each other's mouth. I wish you could see them in my like other notes I had because my top bullet point I wanted to touch on next was capacity for change.
Hmm.
Um, when I think back on my coaching career, the clients who are more like, hey, I'm beginner, probably someone who does have a lot more weight to lose, is more sedentary. To be honest, again, those people have always, it sounds like I'm really not opposed to like macros or flexible dieting
Yeah.
if someone understands how to do it. I feel like this makes it seem like we're very biased against it, but it's
Yeah.
just the reality of like we're really not that opposed to it. Like when we were in Mississippi, I think that both of us we still had like a similar meal structure to what we normally have, but we definitely like did more macro Tetris than we normally would, right? Um, but when I think back on like this type of client, it's very hard for me to recall a single example of that person doing well when I just gave them like, okay, here's your macros, especially if the person's never tracked their food before.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of like, oftentimes in that situation, there are more, not always, but a lot of times there's a lot more emotional decisions that are made. And it can kind of be like there's a lot more lifestyle changes that often need made as well. And like oftentimes a sense of like stress and overwhelm. And tracking macros oftentimes adds to that, let
Yeah.
alone the teaching component of, okay, I'm going to look through your food logs. I'm going to send you a video of me looking through your food logs and showing you, okay, here's what we could change here. Here's what we could change here. Again, getting to the point where we're productively changing is often quite rare. And again, still thinking like those people who have been successful, it is still almost always like, hey, we're basically able to pick up with like a meal plan type structure and understand like, okay, like just from overnight, okay, this is like what a day of eating should look like for me. Cool. And then we can like learn that macros over time. Like very often for that individual, it might be like, hey, we're gonna do this like 5, 6 days a week, and maybe you have if I'm like trying to like quote unquote meet someone more where they're at, maybe we're gonna have like 1 to 2 days a week where you don't track and I just give you food guidelines, like or we don't follow the meal plan and I just give you food guidelines, right? Or we just talk through your like I have a couple clients like this right now. Hey, just like we're gonna follow the meal plan, but when you have like events coming up where I need to be more flexible, we'll just talk through them like a week in advance and we'll just kind of game plan together for how we want to manage that, right? And then over time we can start to work in, okay, here's how we start to track our macros and make this work as well. Um, I think a really cool example though of like progression over time. I thought that like Sam, your client Sam's,
Hmm.
just everything that you've done with her because when she started, she'd never tracked her food, correct?
Right.
And
Right.
she had never really been in the gym.
Nope.
Can you just like give us, because I think this is a good example of like how the coaching process can evolve. Sam's transformation is probably one of the most incredible ones I've seen. She went from, again, like having a lot higher body fat to just being ripped for her photo shoot. Like it literally, you wouldn't even think she was the same person. So kind of talk us through like her story, her process, how that evolved.
I think the interesting thing to highlight about Sam is that, yes, like we used a lot of different strategies along the way because Sam's been with me now like 5 years, 4 or 5 years, something like that. So she's like one of my longest term clients. And we've grown together because like she's certainly grown as an athlete, I've grown as a coach. Um, And then of course we've like just grown as a team, and that's just been a really cool journey. But like she had never tracked her food before, and I think the turning point for her, and I love to bust this out with other clients when we're working through some mindset stuff, is like using her as an example. At one point she like just flipped a switch and she decided she was ready.
Hmm.
So like we spent so much time trying so many different approaches. Like, hey, well, like how about this? And I remember I did start her off very slow. Like,
Right.
hey, like these are proteins. Like I want you to get into MyFitnessPal because that's what we were using at the time. I want you to get into MyFitnessPal. I want you to start playing around and getting familiar with this because this is how we're going to like learn how much we are eating, kind of thing. And we started very like skill based there. And like I would go and review her food logs and I would make really small suggestions.
Hmm.
And then that kind of evolved. And for the longest time, we were tracking protein and calories for the longest time. Um, and now we're just tracking like full macros. But and she still tracks, by the way. Like she doesn't use a meal plan. Um, but at some point along the way, she just like 180'd her readiness for change. And that was the biggest shift
Yeah.
in her trajectory. Was she just decided like I'm sick of this. Like I'm sick of not making progress. I'm sick of not seeing the changes I want. Like I'm in. And it was that. So like that thing that we've basically been discussing, which is like a client's readiness and capacity for change, that was
Hmm.
what shifted.
Yeah.
And then I shifted with her because like I saw it happen and it's like, all right, cool. So now we're doing this. And on the training side, yeah, we started her out like just walking on the treadmill. Like she was so intimidated to go into the gym. So I was like, okay, well, here's what we're going to do. I just want you to go in there. I think it was something like 3 times a week, and I made her like tell me what days she was gonna go. I was like, I
Yeah.
want these in your calendar. Like, you tell me like what days are we like putting this in our calendar? We are going to go to the gym. I just want you to walk on the treadmill for 20 minutes. And I
Hmm.
want you to just like while you're there, I want you to like watch other people and watch what they're doing and like look at the machines. I remember one time I had her like go around the gym and just like look at equipment. And I said, if look at the pictures, because there's usually on most pieces of equipment, there's like a little diagram that
Yeah.
shows you like what it's for and like what I was like, look at that. If you see a piece of equipment that you don't know what it is, take a picture and send it to me and we'll talk about it. And then I remember asking her like, what would you be comfortable with? Like, would you be comfortable like getting into like a leg extension or like picking up a set of dumbbells? I think if memory serves, she said dumbbells, and I was like, great,
Okay.
let's start with that.
Right.
Because a lot of people will find like machines more intimidating.
Yeah.
Like, great, we're here's some dumbbell only workouts, and there were some lifts, and we ask for video, right, so that we can assess your training. And there were some lifts that she felt like really self conscious about, and I was like, that's cool, we'll swap it out. We don't need to do this one.
Hmm.
Because really, for her, the biggest needle mover was like, I need this person to like start training in the gym.
Right.
So like it almost like didn't even matter what she was doing in the gym in terms of like an optimal program split or anything of the sort. It's like I just need her to feel comfortable walking over to the dumbbell rack and like picking up a set and like doing anything with them.
I think that's a very good talking point though in terms of the training with the exercise selection. Like you mentioned, like, hey, she like didn't feel comfortable with this movement. Cool, we'll just swap it out for something else because that's also very dependent on client goals and needs, right? And what will move the needle most for us at the moment. Because for her, that makes complete sense. I think of like one of my clients, Purva, shout out, made great progress. Very proud of her. Also, someone who has a ton of potential that I push very hard because I know she has that. And she always responds very well to it. But like, I just got yesterday, I got her training feedback for like the end of our training phase, kind of reassessing goals. What do we want to do next? One of her main goals is to build her glutes more. She also has this kind of hip thing going on, which is just she's not very stable through the hips. We need to improve that. But one of the biggest pieces of feedback in her review was, I'm so bored and tired of doing single leg movements. And I was like, dude, I am actually going to give you more single leg movements here for our goals, like to fix this hip slash back thing we have going on. And if you want to build glutes, we need to get really good at hinging. We need to get really good at stabilizing the pelvis. We need to get really good at like a split squat pattern. And again, this is someone who, she has an impressive physique already. She wants to level it up more, right? So here, like us avoiding that, and it carries over to, like it started to carry over into like, hey, like her hack squat, right? Like she's having some hip pain with her hack squat due to like the hip stability things we need. Like it will carry over. If we just did bilateral, we would have to address this eventually anyways, because it's going to be something that will carry over into those bilateral movements as well. So it's like, that's a situation where, hey, no, like this is what you want. We're going to have to get out of our comfort zone.
Hmm.
Typically, the things we suck at are the things we need to address and lean into in order to kind of get to the next level from here. And I'm always impressed with her. She's always very receptive to that. That's part of why she's made such good progress. But kind of the opposite of that situation.
There is no way you're growing glutes without learning to move better through the hip. There, you're just not going to do it. Um, yeah, I think, yeah, I feel like this entire conversation is really just about like, you need to do the thing that scares you and that's uncomfortable.
Mhm.
And if I meet you where you're at, we're avoiding that thing.
Right.
And it's now that we're talking about it, like so many examples come to mind, but like I had a client recently who was like she was kind of crashing out a little bit, like stress has been really high. And I've noticed, because I've coached her a while now, I've noticed that the pattern is that every time that this happens, it's like I need a reset. And that's when we go into like, can we change X, Y, and Z? Like I just need a reset. Like, can we change up my training program so that it just feels like a new chapter? And I said, and there could be, now here's again, there's nuance and balance, because
Mhm.
like my goal is not to have my clients so bored that they want to gouge their eyes out. Like there is a time and a place to refresh your training program, right?
Right.
Um, but if this is your pattern, like every time I get frustrated and upset, I want to change something. That's what you're trying to avoid. And so my answer was
It's the
no.
obstacle. Yeah.
We need to sit in it. And I literally told her that. I said, "Hey, I've identified this pattern, and this also goes hand in hand with like getting her to train harder as well." I'm like,
Hmm.
or again, there was some emotional eating as well, and this was the whole theme. It's like sometimes there's not a solution to this, and you just need to sit with these feelings,
Right.
and that's okay. Like we don't need to avoid these feelings. Like they're a part of life. They're normal. I need you to learn how to like sit in this. And that
Hmm.
was kind of the tie over I made with her training as well. It's like you need to be a little bit bored sometimes. And we need to kind of like not run away from the thing. Like there's no other reason to change the thing other than I feel like I need a reset. So I don't know.
No, that's a very good. It's all when it comes to making changes in the plan like that, training, nutrition, uh, I think being able to recognize your client patterns and like, hey, is me feeding into this thing, is this helpful or is this harmful? Like, is this just causing them to repeat the same pattern that's held them
Yeah.
back? Basically, you said like the obstacle is kind of the way there. I feel like I've said that a lot. I don't.
Clients, I'm sorry, a lot of coaches though will have that scarcity mindset of like, oh my God,
Hmm.
well, I better change something because like the client's gonna leave because they're bored.
Right.
But it's like, and again, like I said, there's a total time and a place for like refreshing a training program. I had a different a different client, my client Anna, shout out to her. She's like, hey, can we like work in pull-ups and dips again? And I was like,
Yeah.
sure, dude, like absolutely. There was like really no reason for me to say no. I'm like, yeah, let's do it.
Right.
Um, but I think with this other client, there would be a lot of coaches that would go into that scarcity mindset of like, oh my God, she's gonna leave because she's bored. But I'm like, no, this is literally the thing that she needs to work on, is
Hmm.
like being bored and like sitting with it and not running away from the thing. Like this is the skill that we need to master.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, I hope she doesn't leave. I hope none of my clients leave. But like I can't be as the coach. And I think speaks to the broader point of the conversation here. Is like as a coach, I can't be scared to push this person where they need to go to get the results that they are paying me for, that they say they want. It's not because I'm trying
Correct.
to be like a meanie, or anything. It's like these are the results you signed up for, and like this is how we're going to get there. And if like we're just kicking the can down the road, so to speak, if we're like avoiding the thing because like it's uncomfortable.
Yes. That's just as much as like training and nutrition. It has to come with you being willing to change those patterns and recognize, or be willing to let your coach recognize and call out those patterns that are keeping you stuck. And for so many people, it is either typically one of two things. Either I'm not motivated unless I've fallen off track, and I have to get in such a place of feeling like shit that it's like, oh my God, I feel terrible. I have to get out of this place. And then that like self-loathing is your motivation for a couple of weeks until you get back on track, feel a little bit better, fall off. And then it's where like basically always motivated by the stick. Or kind of the same thing, counter to this, a lot of people also have a pattern of, hey, we have two really, this is actually almost the exact same thing, but it looks a little different. We are doing okay, not making the best progress. We have a couple really good weeks where we nail things. I'm feeling really good. And I kind of started to let my foot up off the gas, which again, for a lot of people is a pattern of like, oh, well, just like my example of my client, Susie, where I was like, nah, dude, you're taking your food with you on this trip. Sorry. Like it's that for many people is a pattern as well. Like I feel good. I can let my foot up off the gas a little bit. And again, it's like for her, I was like, think about how like the last two check-ins, not even just the physical side of things, but mentally, like how good you have felt. I have never seen you this positive or this excited until these last two check-ins. You're always like very sweet, positive, great, love her to death, super fun client to work with. But like this is you're so excited about where you're at. Why would we stop doing the thing that got us here? Um, I had another point to make, but I completely forgot. Anything else you want to add there?
No.
I do think then on the training side of things, in terms of exercise selection and like program design for new clients, there is a very important component of matching the movements we're choosing to the client's skill level, right? A lot of people come on board might either want like, hey, I want like the most complex, like, I don't know, like lying single arm behind the back, cuffed lateral raise at knee height, but the execution might not match that. Like their ability to actually execute that well and get a decent stimulus out of it might not be there. It's kind of like it's almost kind of like the meal plan in a way where we have to look at like, hey, I've on paper, like yes, that crazy lateral raise variation might be more optimal, but even for like you figuring out the setup, like I can't get you in the cable in the lateral raise machine without like or the cable stack without being like all twisted up in the cables and like like we're just all over the place here. Like we're gonna just start you learning this pattern with like a dumbbell lateral raise, even if it's like quote unquote
Mhm.
less optimal on paper. Or even like we're gonna master the basics of a heel elevated goblet squat before you hack squat just because our movement quality is so poor. So there is a large element of that, but it doesn't necessarily mean again like hey, we want to start you doing just the things you like doing because you've already been doing the things that you like doing, haven't gotten us where we want to be. And we can learn to like new things over time. Go ahead.
Yeah, you know what the best example of this is that has come up so many times recently is the split squat.
Yeah.
Like I feel like pretty much everyone knows they need to do them at this point,
Hmm.
but it's like it's usually in everyone's plan that I write.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and usually I'll start out with like a bilateral variation.
Hmm.
I mean bilateral like as in holding a dumbbell in each hand.
Right.
Obviously it's a unilateral lower body movement.
Understood. Yeah,
Yes.
we're good.
Um, I know I'm just waiting for some internet troll to be like, well, actually. So I mean, holding two dumbbells, standing on one leg, as opposed to a contralateral or an ipsilateral hold. Because a lot of times, like I just like, and it's going to be the one of the first videos I request to see because it's going to
Yeah.
show me so many things, and I want to see how this person organizes themselves. And based on that, then I might we might work on it for a little while, and then eventually I might come around to like, all right, here's a hand support, or we're gonna go contralateral with an ipsilateral hand support, something like that. But like so many times the person right off the rip is like, I can't balance. Can I like I just need to have a hand support. Did you just see that?
Yeah, the balloons were
I had
crazy.
balloons in my background. Okay, cool. Split squats. Um, but yeah, it's like I can't balance. Like this is so hard, and it's like, yeah, you suck at this. Like, and so that's what we're here for. We're here to work on this because you said you wanted glutes, so we're gonna have to figure this out. And so then it's like, well, can I just like put this on a Smith squat because I feel so much Smith machine because I feel so much more stable. That's the conversation that's come up so many times.
Yeah.
Is like, this is hard and I can't balance. Can I put this on a Smith machine? And it's like literally after the first week, I'm like, no, because you're really bad at this and your hips are shitty. And so if we put this on a Smith machine, then we're locked into these shitty positions and we're just reinforcing the shittiness. Like,
Right.
so no. And so that's a great example of like, this is so uncomfortable for you, but like the obstacle is the way.
Yeah, for
Sorry.
sure. It's like that person who wants to build glutes, but hey, we suck at stabilizing our hips, controlling
Right.
our pelvic position. And just putting you in that Smith machine, just, that's, we're not addressing the issue, right? The reason this is so hard, again, that like instability we have there, us addressing that eventually is going to be the thing that gets you to where we want to be.
Yeah.
There's a quote, I've shared this with you guys in the past. This isn't my quote. Her name's Kendall Strample, I think, on Instagram. She's more like a business coach, but I do really like a lot of her content and thoughts on coaching. I really like this quote. I used to think being a good coach meant meeting clients where they're at, making them feel safe, seen, and validated. But what I was really doing was enabling them because when you're
Mm.
scared to call your client out, you're not protecting them, you're protecting yourself from rejection, from discomfort, from being the one to hold the tension that creates real change. People don't pay you to coddle them, they pay you to challenge them, to hold the mirror steady when it's uncomfortable to look. When you meet your clients where they're at, you keep them there. When you meet them where they're going, you teach them to rise. And that's what leadership actually looks like. And that's
Mm.
very much, I think, the crux of what we're talking about here is kind of like a, hey, we might not be able to, like when I bring on a client, I see their goal physique pictures. I can picture in my head this person with a goal physique. How do they operate? What does their training look like? How do they execute? How do they handle their nutrition? Let's compare that to this person in front of us. They're nowhere near that level yet. Now, I might not be able to get them all the way down the road to where they want to be, but I also can't just meet them where they're at right now. Like, where is the point in the road where I can get them with their first program? Then over time that evolves, we push them a little bit further down the road as we add on more complexities or whatever, more challenges or whatever it may be. But I really think that's in a nutshell, like how we have to approach coaching. Um, any thoughts there? I gotta let my dog out quick. Sorry.
I'm laughing. I'm seeing her in the background. Um, no, and that is a fantastic quote. I think
Yeah,
I feel like I could just keep like drilling examples here, but I honestly feel like that's a great way to kind of sum up what we've been roundabout talking about. And I think we've grown a lot as coaches in our willingness to get uncomfortable. So I feel like, we
sure.
spent the last hour talking about like, getting clients uncomfortable, pushing them into our discomfort. But I think also recognizing as coaches, and so we coach a lot of coaches too. But as coaches, like we also have to be willing to get uncomfortable because understand that it is so much easy. It's actually so much easier for me to meet a client where they're at.
It
Like it's
is.
so much easier for me to be like, yeah, dude, like we don't need to change this. Go on with your bad self or like whatever. You know, that would be so easy. Like to all of my clients, every time I like drop some feedback that maybe you didn't want to hear, that's not always fun for me. Like the act of doing it, that isn't fun. It's fun down the road because I know you guys are awesome at receiving feedback, and implementing it, and I know that it's going to get you to where you want to go. But like in the heat of the moment, like I definitely have to like gear myself up sometimes to be like, she's not gonna like this, but I'm going in. And like that's why coaching can be like very very emotionally draining because like that's delivering bad feedback, pushing someone into discomfort and like telling someone things they don't want to hear and like having to be the person to be like, hey, dude, I would love for you to go eat whatever you want out at dinner tonight, but I really just think you need to take a Ziploc bag of cold tilapia, like, and just like suck it up for tonight. Like, man, I wish I didn't have to say that sometimes, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I I was talking to Katie about this the other night. There are some nights where I like wrap up work and like I'm like kind of coming down from the day and I'm like, I may have hurt some feelings. I am anxious to see what is waiting for me in my messages tomorrow. Now I'm very grateful.
100%.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like, hmm, did
Not sure how
I?
that's gonna land.
I'm like, should I have pushed that person that much? Am I like being too hard on
Yeah.
them? And I'm never a dick to my clients, but I love seeing people realize so much more of their potential here. 'Cause it's so
Yeah.
cool. That's like truly to me, like the physique development side of things is so cool. But it's truly like seeing someone realize like how much more they can become. And just how much more of their potential they have left to tap into. That's so cool to me. And that's
Hmm.
like why I think we're all the same. That's why we love coaching so much. And without those conversations, again, like we don't grow without that. You as a coach, if you're not willing to challenge your clients, again, it's not comfortable for me. I'm definitely not by nature a people pleaser. Um, having you on the team has helped me a lot there. But it's just being not confrontational. That's not the right word, but
No, it's
uh,
because I care about people pleasing, unless it's me. That's the real reason.
right, exactly. But yeah, that's a whole nother tangent. But it's just such an important part of coaching. And again, that's I think the most important thing to take away from this, like as coaches, there is so much thought we put into everyone's programs in terms of like where in the road do I need to meet this person? Again, not where they're at. I can't take them all the way to where they're going yet, but like where am I able to meet them as far down this road as possible to start getting them towards the outcome they want? And again, keep them on that fine line between we're pushing them outside of their comfort zone and enough to keep growing without hitting the breaking point. Um, any final thoughts before we wrap this up?
Yeah, I would like to mention how proud of my clients I am. So, clients that are listening, which hopefully is all of you, I am continually so impressed week after week with y'all's ability and receptiveness to accept feedback, good or bad. I mean, not all feedback's good, right? In a way. But to your point, there are so many nights I wrap up and I'm like, yikes. Like, let's see. I don't know like how this person's gonna take this. But like I am so continually impressed. Like it's like I sign on to my messages the next morning, and every time someone just surprises me and they're like, thank you for calling that out. You're totally right.
Yeah,
Like, and I'm like, oh, like that's so cool. Like again, that's the definition of a person who is coachable. So like we
right.
don't expect our clients to be perfect. We're not perfect, but we do expect you to be coachable. And this is kind of what we're talking about. It's like you got to be receptive to the feedback, because the feedback is it's the things that are holding you back to getting to where you say you want to go. So, yeah.
Absolutely. I think you're the same to my people as well. It is always funny how much, and again, this is like the same for us. Like I very much, a year, 2 years ago, I remember us having a conversation around like biggest obstacle for us as coaches is our willingness to have hard conversations. And then like me as the owner of the business as well, that's been a big thing that's held us back and started our growth. And we really leaned into that a lot more. Very proud of how much we've grown. But it is funny how much you can catastrophize that with like, oh shit, is she gonna be super upset? Is she gonna like send me a Loom video of herself crying and like but I am always so impressed. Like again, I mentioned to Purva like how impressed I am always with her. And
Mhm.
it's like I just always like, hey, you're right. Yep, I'm excited. Let's do it. Like thank you for bringing that up. So shout out to my people as well. You guys are the best, better than Natalie's clients.
What?
Um, well, I'm just kidding. I love you all equally. All right, I think that's a good place to wrap it up. We appreciate y'all. Thank you everyone for tuning in. If you enjoyed the show, do us a huge favor. Leave us a 5-star rating and review. If you would like to apply for coaching, hit the link in the show notes, and we will catch you guys next time.